The smiling dentist. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Sarah. She had a big fear of dentists. Every time she thought of going to the dentist, her heart raced like a horse. But one day, she had a toothache that wouldn't go away, so her mom took her to the dentist. At the dentist's office, Sarah saw strange pictures on the walls. They looked spooky, like something from a Halloween movie. The dentist, Dr. Hawthorne, had a big smile, but it didn't make Sarah feel better. She felt like something wasn't right, but she tried to ignore it. Sarah sat in the dentist's chair, feeling scared. The dentist looked at her teeth and said everything was okay. But Sarah felt like there was something wrong. She tried to tell herself it was just her imagination. As the dentist started working on her teeth, Sarah heard strange noises. It sounded like whispers in the air. She looked around, but nobody else seemed to hear them. She felt a chill run down her spine. Sarah wanted to run away, but she stayed in the chair. She thought maybe she was just being silly, but deep down, she knew something wasn't right. Little did she know, the real nightmare was just beginning. Sarah's tooth continued to ache even after she left the dentist's office. At night, she started having strange dreams about the dentist, Dr. Hawthorne. In her dreams, he had sharp teeth and laughed like a monster. During the day, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the whispers she heard at the dentist's office. She felt like someone was watching her, even when she was alone. Her friends noticed she seemed different, more scared and jumpy than usual. One day, Sarah looked in the mirror and saw something strange in her reflection. Her eyes looked darker, and there was a shadow behind her. She blinked, and it was gone. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing inside her. Sarah's toothache got worse, and she started having trouble sleeping. Every night, she dreamed of Dr. Hawthorne chasing her with his sharp teeth. She woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. Her mom took her back to the dentist, but Dr. Hawthorne said there was nothing wrong with her tooth. Sarah didn't believe him. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what to do. And as the days went by, the feeling of fear grew stronger, like a shadow creeping over her soul. After Sarah's visit to the dentist, things started to get weirder. She couldn't stop thinking about the whispers she heard and the strange dreams she had about Dr. Hawthorne. She felt like she was being watched all the time, even in her own home. Sarah's friends realized something was wrong because she acted differently. She wasn't going out with them anymore and preferred to be by herself. She didn't want to tell them what was making her upset because she was afraid they wouldn't think her story was true. At night, Sarah's dreams got scarier. She dreamed of Dr. Hawthorne turning into a monster and chasing her through a dark forest. She woke up sweating and shaking, too scared to go back to sleep. During the day, Sarah's toothache got worse, but she was too scared to go back to the dentist. She was afraid of what she might find out, afraid that Dr. Hawthorne might not be who he seemed to be. Sarah felt like she was going crazy. She didn't know who to trust or what to believe anymore. All she knew was that she was scared, and the fear was starting to consume her. As Sarah's fear of the dentist grew, so did her toothache. She couldn't sleep at night, bothered by bad dreams of Dr. Hawthorne's strange smile. In a lot of pain, Sarah decided to fix the problem herself. One day, while her parents were gone, Sarah peeked into her dad's toolbox and took a tool with two metal jaws. Her hands shook as she tried to use it to pull out her sore tooth, thinking it would stop the pain. But as the pliers touched her tooth, Sarah heard a voice behind her. "What are you doing, Sarah?" it whispered. She turned around, but there was no one there. The voice sounded like Dr. Hawthorne's, but she knew it couldn't be him. Shaken, Sarah dropped the pliers and ran out of the house. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to get away from whatever was happening to her. As she wandered the streets, Sarah stumbled upon an old bookstore she'd never noticed before. Curious, she went inside and started browsing the shelves. That's when she found a dusty old book about ancient curses and dark magic. As she flipped through the pages, Sarah's heart raced. Could Dr. Hawthorne be using magic to control her? It sounded crazy, but it was the only explanation that made sense. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah embarked on a quest to unravel the mystery of the spooky dentist and his sinister secrets. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was happening at Dr. Hawthorne's dental office. With a mixture of fear and determination, she decided to confront him and put an end to the nightmare once and for all. Taking a deep breath, Sarah walked purposefully back to the dentist's office. As she pushed open the door, she was met with a strange quiet. The waiting room was empty, and there was no sign of Dr. Hawthorne. But Sarah knew he was there, hiding in the darkness, waiting to attack. With a nervous breath, she took another step into the office, her heart beating fast in her chest. Suddenly, Dr. Hawthorne stepped out of the darkness. His smile looked even eviler than before. "Well, Sarah," he said, his voice harsh and unkind, "I knew you'd be here." Sarah refused to back down, her hands balled into fists. "What did you do to me?" she asked, her voice shaky but strong. Dr. Hawthorne laughed in a low, menacing way. "Don't you understand, Sarah? I've always had power over you. And now that you know everything, there's no way out." With a wave of his hand, Dr. Hawthorne called darkness around Sarah, trapping her in a tight hug that made it hard to breathe. But Sarah wouldn't let fear control her. Using all her remaining strength, she fought back against the darkness, pushing it away with all her determination. In the epic showdown that followed, Sarah confronted Dr. Hawthorne with courage she didn't know she had. She refused to be his puppet any longer, determined to break free from his sinister grasp. As the battle raged on, Sarah realized that victory would come at a steep price. She would have to sacrifice something dear to her in order to defeat Dr. Hawthorne once and for all. With a heavy heart, Sarah made the ultimate sacrifice, knowing that it was the only way to save herself and break free from the nightmare that had consumed her life. As Sarah stood in front of Dr. Hawthorne in the dentist's office with the lights turned down low, she realized she had a big decision to make. She could either keep being scared of him or face him and stop him from bothering her anymore. With a shaking hand, Sarah reached into her pocket and pulled out a small charm she had found in the dusty old bookstore. It glowed with a weak light, offering her a bit of hope in the darkness. Dr. Hawthorne's eyes narrowed as he saw the amulet in Sarah's hand. "You dare to defy me," he snarled, his voice echoing with anger. But Sarah held her ground, her heart filled with determination. "I will not let you control me anymore," she declared, her voice shaking but resolute. With a sudden burst of energy, Sarah raised the amulet high above her head, channeling all of her courage and strength into one final act of defiance. The amulet glowed brighter, casting a protective barrier around her, and pushing back the shadows that threatened to consume her. Dr. Hawthorne recoiled in shock, his powers weakened by Sarah's newfound resolve. For the first time, he realized that he had underestimated her strength and determination. In a desperate attempt to regain control, Dr. Hawthorne attacked Sarah, his fingers bared and his teeth grinding with rage. But Sarah was ready. With a swift motion, she pushed the charm into Dr. Hawthorne's chest, breaking the darkness that had held him prisoner for so long. But when she went to grab the charm she'd found in the dusty bookstore, she realized with dread that it was missing. In a frenzy, she tore through her pockets, searching everywhere for it. It felt like a terrible twist of luck, leaving her powerless against the evil that loomed over her. With a smug grin, Dr. Hawthorne walked toward Sarah, his eyes flashing with evil. "You thought you could beat me, child," he mocked, his voice dripping with disgust. "But you're no challenge for the power I hold." Sarah shivered in fear, knowing she couldn't defeat the evil forces lined up against her. Dr. Hawthorne came closer, and Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, wishing for something amazing to happen, but knowing in her heart it wouldn't. With a fast movement, Dr. Hawthorne reached out and grabbed Sarah by the throat, his hand squeezing harder with each passing moment. Sarah struggled to break free, but it was no use. The darkness closed in around her, swallowing her whole as she descended into unconsciousness. And as the last bits of awareness faded away, Sarah knew she had lost the fight for her soul. In the end, the darkness had won, leaving nothing behind but an empty body of what she once was. As Dr. Hawthorne stood over Sarah's lifeless body, a twisted smile played across his lips, for he knew that he had claimed another victim, forever consigning her to a fate worse than death. The town grew sad as the day ended. They missed someone who had died. They didn't know that evil was nearby, hiding in the darkness. It was waiting to hurt someone else who didn't suspect anything.